to the Bellevue Club Swim Team podcast. Today we have longtime friend, PNS legend, and UW legend, Jody Braden. Jody, thanks for being on the show with us today.
Thank you. Excited to be on here. So yeah.
How are you holding up?
Holding up pretty good. Walking nearly every day, and then doing some flashbacks to running stairs like I did in college, and just trying weird workouts, and go watch my kid work out with some big football players. So that's kind of cool. And actually, a name dropped. Caleb McGarry of UW was down there the other day. So pretty cool. Yeah.
Go Dogs. Very
good.
Dogs. So before we kind of get into the questions and the nitty gritty of everything, love for you to give us an introduction and, you know, your experiences growing up to where you're at. You're currently the head coach at Portland Aquatic Club, but, you know, you had a long history in the Pacific Northwest before that. So
sure, I can go way back for you guys. So, and I was thinking about this last night. I started swimming. My parents wanted to buy a house across the street from Green Lake. My mom was paranoid that somehow I'd walk across the street and fall in the lake and drown. So we lived up by the old Olympic Swim School on about 98th and Lake City Way, and they signed me up for swim lessons. And back then, you got a little logo that said Olympic, and once you finished Olympic, you were done. You passed your lessons. I started in the summer of 1976. I can remember watching the legend Rick Colella get a bronze in the 200 breast. Well, this swimming's kind of cool. I finished the whole thing in one summer. Got my C, and a coach by the name, actually he was our swim lessons, but he was also the coach at Cascade. Jim Hansen was there, and he told my parents, you need to be on the swim team. I don't even know what a swim team is. Next thing I know, I'm on team training. I meet the youngest of the Colellas, which is a whole other story of Pacific Northwest swimming, Pete Colella. We become fast friends. Within like a couple months, I'm now dropping in on team practices, and a year later I'm at my first age group regionals in Wenatchee, Washington, and got dead last in the 100 butterfly, by the way. So that's kind of the beginning of my career. So I'm on Cascade Swim Club for 10 years, made junior nationals, placed as high as third at junior nationals. They went through about 5 coaching changes within a year, and Bob Miller had recently come to Bellevue Club, or Bellevue Athletic Club back then, and it's time to make a change. So I started swimming with Bellevue, and got to go to Clovis, which was a cool meet, cool pools, about 110 degrees. Swam like 4 events, and like the last day, Bob comes up, hey, by the way, you made Olympic trials, because of course you didn't have a phone to look up the time. So I found a piece of paper, and I'd made my first Olympic trials for Bellevue. And another Bellevue legend, Jeff Garr, was swimming at that. He swam at Stanford, the first guy I ever know to break 20 in the 50 free. Anyway, sidebar, Coach Earl Ellis, I had many options to go to college, and Earl came to Bellevue Club and sold me one last time on coming to UW, and I went to UW and had a great career, got as high as third at NC2As, won a Pac-10 title, and made a national team, and went on some other crazy trips we can talk about. And then after my last Olympic trials in 92, didn't know what quite I was going to do. I was actually the laundry manager there at the Bellevue Club. And,
nice.
Yeah. And Klaus was talking about how somehow my mom and I were at the Bellevue Club banquet, or Bellevue BAC banquet back then. And he's like, I need a coach. And my mom looks at me and he's like, you need another job. I'm like, oh, so I'm like, Klaus, maybe I want to coach. And he's like, come see me tomorrow. Next thing I know, I'm coaching what was called I don't know if you guys still have the regional group, but it was a regional group, which basically at that time were 12 and unders who were doing other sports. And that's how I got fished into coaching there. So it's kind of a start. So you tell me what else you want to know. So.
Regional group, that's Dwight's group right now. So
okay.
Very cool.
Well, I can fill you in more on that. So if you want me to keep going.
Yeah.
Okay. So started that group, and that was in 92. We got to Seattle Open. There was a swimmer named Tara Johnson, and she really wanted to make age group zones, and we did a lead off in the 50 on 200 free relay, and she made her first zone cut. So it was kind of like my first taste of like, ooh, this is kind of cool. So she made that, and then we kept going with that group, and then eventually I think we lost a coach. So then I added one of the gold groups in the morning, and actually I should take that back. Back then the regional group was at 5 a.m. So I had the regional group from 5 to 6:30, and then
Thank God that's changed.
Yeah, that's changed. Yeah, and back then we had to put in the lane lines. So there was either Bob Miller, myself, and a coach, Steve Johnson, was there. We're always putting the lane lines because
Steve Johnson was my first coach on North Shore Swim Club.
There you go. So yeah, so Steve was great, and he's another legend. You can talk about swimming the mile way too much with Bob Miller, but Klaus always got to come in at about 7:38, so we had to make sure the pool was always ready. Then there would be days where Bob Miller would want to go long course, and then it would just be Bob and Steve and I trying to move the old bulkhead at the Bellevue Club, and usually would almost knock it in the pool sometimes because Bob was like, "We got to get this done in like 5 minutes." So anyway, back to coaching. Had that gold group, started going great. We got to have some battles with Klaus. Eventually, I think I added an age group. I can't remember which one. And then about the mid 90s, a few years later, we lost a coach during the season, and I got to take the whatever your top age group is. And it was basically, they were having a hard time, so it was just like have fun for a couple months. And we got to zones, and I think one girl broke 4 zone records. Another swimmer won like every event. And I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. And then funny part is the last day, it was actually the day I met my wife for the first time. And then 2 years later, we got married. So that was that. And then back to the regional group, we'd have some swimmers that just came. I can remember a parent coming in going, I just want my kid to go to at least one practice so they could be in the banquet. And we figured it out. They spent $1,300 a practice so they could be in the slideshow. To a swimmer of Nate O'Brien came in and really didn't want to swim all the time because his sister was a good swimmer. Dad was always there. And then eventually he's like, okay, my sister's going to Notre Dame. He starts going fast, moves into Klaus and Bob's group and makes nationals and goes on swims in Texas and made the Canadian Olympic team in 2004. In between there, then I got kind of spoiled. Bob and Klaus added a sprint group, more because I think Bob didn't want to coach the sprinters. So I had a group of like 10 kids that I got to just play with for, every day. And I had 2 girls top 8 at juniors in North Dakota. Our boys rocked the meet. They ended up second to Mission Viejo, and we only had 4 boys, and Mission Viejo had like 13. It was really cool. The head coach of North Dakota, they had like a drawing for a wave runner, and he brought it in and got it in the pool and was going all around the pool on the last night. So that was kind of crazy. Don't think you can do that well, especially now. You'll never be able to do that again.
Yeah.
So yeah, my one swimmer, she went on to Cal. The other one went on to UCLA. And then after that is when the legendary Pat Fowler came into the regional group. And he would only come basically when he wanted to. I can remember when he was about 13, somebody brought 13 donuts. And then about 2 months later, he goes, I think somehow he was able to go to Santa Clara, and he pops a 10700 breast. And he was like 14. And so Klaus was like, well, he's got to move up to the senior group. A year later, he's going, 102 and makes Goodwill team. And then the next year, he had gone like 5,500 breasts and pops a 53 at the high school state meet. It was one of the most incredible, still I think one of the most incredible swims I've ever seen, because people weren't going 53 in 1998 or 99. So that was kind of that. And then shortly thereafter, kept doing a bunch of groups. Bellevue we were winning regionals, age group regionals, hosting the meets all the time until Jerry from King decided to have the salmon bake and swayed the vote, and then we weren't hosting the meet all the time. But I'm not bitter about that. I did like the Dairy Queen hamburgers on the last day. And then in 2004, my wife got the opportunity to move closer to her parents, so I moved down to Portland and Vancouver, Washington, and coached with CRST for a while. And then the Portland Aquatic Club job came open, and I took over Portland Aquatic Club. And within a year, we had kids making juniors, and we've had just last trials, we had 2 swimmers at Olympic trials, and we would have 3 going next year, but one has decided she got her master's, so she's going to hopefully start a new job. So that's kind of where we are now, and we're just waiting to get in the pool, and got some young ones coming up, and excited for the new adventures.
Speaking of Pat Fowler putting up times way back when that are still impressive nowadays, I do have to mention you put up times back then that are still relevant now, and you're still on the record board at the Bellevue Club. And, you know, those times that you throw up, they've been always so impressive. So, you know, I know Lee has a few questions here going forward for you, but, you know, I just wanted to brag for you, toot your own horn for our viewers.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it was pretty crazy. I mean, I can share one meet, like right before I went to Pan American Games in Cuba. Bob, who was the head coach of Bellevue Club, was like, you know, you don't know what you're going to get in Cuba. Let's rest for, well, it was regionals back then. And so I'm like, all right, let's rest. And yeah, I can remember swimming at Weyerhaeuser. This was literally the day before I was flying out, and did 200 free and popped a 152 low, which just missed trials at that time. My 400 IM, I went 425, and that wasn't my best, but it was a good swim because I think I did an event right before it. Even went like 208 and 200 back, double on 100 back, and the 100 back. I think I went 220 and 200 breast. I actually won it somehow, which I was a kid who couldn't swim breaststroke when I was younger. And 204 on a 200 IM. But probably my favorite event was the event I didn't want to swim, was the 400 free. Because Bob's like, you got to do the 400 free. And I remember going out in 201 and then came back at 158 and broke 4 minutes. So that may still be at the Bellevue Club. I don't know if it is, but that's
I think it is.
That was a pretty fun swim, even though I was still mad at Bob. But then I got to go to Cuba right after, and that was pretty cool. So one of my highlight swims, other than getting last as an 8 and under at age group regionals, but still a highlight because I still can remember looking at that pool of Wenatchee. So hopefully you guys get to go back to Apple Capital Nose and go, oh, lane 10, that's where Braden got last. Anyway, I guess, Lee, you got the question here?
Yeah, I brought a little of my own Coach Jody history with me today. So I've got some medals from age group regionals 2003.
Oh, yes.
You coached me to the win in the 50 and the 100 back when I was 10.
That's awesome.
So thank you for that. We still have them.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And you kind of touched on this a little bit earlier, but I just want to come back to that. You know, you were the laundry manager and you're kind of having group, and then you had a couple of moments where you were like, oh, coaching is cool. This is cool.
Yeah.
Was there a point when you said like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to be a coach, right? And when you made that decision, what was it like? How did it feel? Was it scary? You know, and just kind of talk about like that moment in time, if there was one.
Yeah, I think it was during that summer, I took over, I think we called it the zone group or whatever then. And I remember walking on deck and you could just see those kids light up like, okay, we've got some stability now, because they'd kind of gone through a lot during that time. And that wasn't normal for Bellevue. And about a week into it, it was just, they were just clicking and laughing and smiling. And it was like, all right, I think I can do this. And I remember, well, a few months later, I met Debbie and I was talking to her. I was like, she's like, well, what are you gonna do? I'm like, I think I'm gonna be a coach, because I was kind of thinking about going back and getting my master's and doing social work. And after listening to those calls on the King County, what do I?
And she stayed with you after you told her that?
Surprisingly, well, thankfully she was making a lot more money at Nordstrom. So. That's a sidebar. We can talk about how she stalked me, but we'll just say that I'm fortunate that my stalker didn't kill me. So it's easier to marry him. So
yeah.
But back to it, Dwight. Yeah, it was a little scary. I mean, it always is still, because you go through different things and you got to constantly learn. I mean, I can remember coming home from I was at my wedding, and classic Klaus, hey, do you want to go to Alaska? And I'm like, well, when is it? He goes, this date. And I'm like, that's 2 days after I get home from my honeymoon. Thankfully, I looked at my new bride and I'm like, I'm going to be flying to Florida after we get back. And she's like, okay, whatever. So I'm also, so I'm fortunate with that. I was fortunate to be somewhere like that where, very supportive staff. I think I was also kind of lucky that I swam for those guys, so it was a little easier. But in some ways, might have been a little harder because maybe I didn't ask all the questions I should have or could have. But,
yeah.
But look, I'm still connected to you guys now, so there's something about it. And yeah, I think there was one point when I went to the age groups, it might have been like yours or maybe your sisters, and I was getting frustrated and Klaus walked by and it's like, they're laughing. That's a good thing. And I'm like, oh, you're right. Cool. Peace. And it was just like peaceful, just relaxed.
There you go. Classic Klaus.
Yeah, classic Klaus.
Putting things in perspective.
Exactly. And I still to this day use that with my staff.
Yeah.
When they're like, because I have a couple that are just so dialed in and so focused. I'm like, just relax. Who cares? You can throw away you don't need your lesson plan every day.
Yeah.
So,
Cool.
so hopefully that answers your questions.
Yeah. And a perfect segue into the next one, which is, with all that experience behind you and looking back on it and being able to reflect on it now, if you could go back and talk to young coach Jody or get to coach those first couple groups of kids again, is there something you would change? Is there something you would explicitly tell them or try and develop in them? Is there a question that you would have asked, knowing what you know now back then?
Well, I probably, with some of those groups, probably would not have emulated the, 10 400s with some of the kids, or the 15 400s. Questions, yeah, I probably would have tried to do a little better job of like just giving the kids opportunities to have, one-on-ones with me.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't do all those. I usually would do group ones. But other than that, I think more just probably trying to, instead of just focusing on being on deck for the 6 hours I was on deck, as here comes the cat, probably just try to maybe sometimes gone and sat, next to Bob or Klaus rather than like, oh, that's my boss. I'm done with my practice. I'm getting out of here.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm good at that at swim meets, but sometimes I don't take advantage. I still don't take advantage of like, oh, I could go down to somebody's practice and watch it. So I do take advantage of it a little more now when we share, kind of like you guys at Coleman. I do it at Mount Hood. And so that's probably it. But yeah, the kids, I think more it was trying to have fun and trying to make it relax. And I still try to do that within keeping them safe and under control.
Totally. Nice. Thanks, Jody.
Sure.
You mentioned regionals, right? And it's a pretty special meet, especially in March. Everyone here has taken part in that meet as a swimmer and as a coach. What do you all remember most? And what's your favorite memory at that regionals meet? And Dwight, Jody, Lee, all three of you can definitely contribute here.
Well, I'll start. For me, like I said, from remembering getting last on my first regionals to the next year getting second in every event and then winning events and then kind of alternating those years. Back then it was 9, 10, under 11, 12. To even the years when I was like 13 and not winning and learning that, okay, this is okay. At first it was frustrating. I didn't get to be on some relays that were breaking regional records back then, but I look back now and that's still a point that got me fired up to be better. And then going on at 14 and then making zone teams was awesome. As a coach, I can tell you one of my favorite regionals was one year we had a challenging athlete and turned him around and he's in the 200 free and he's ahead by like 5 body lengths and he hits the 150 and stops and we're yelling at him, go! And he's looking at us like, what? Like, no, you've got another 50. He still ended up second. I think he was like 11 or 12 and still broke 2 minutes. And it's still, well ingrained in my mind. And that was 20 plus years ago. So back when we would strategize and see how many relays we could get and how many could get first, second, and third, to scoring out the meet, which I'm sure you guys still do at this time. But age group regionals is a special meet. Actually we had one, Lee, you'll remember Valenico when he almost missed the backstroke and Mom lost the gasket and then almost did it later in the meet. So, things like, stupid things like that too. So that's
You're still dealing with age troopers. So it's the fun of it.
Or the fire alarm last year, so.
Oh yeah, that was your kid.
Oh my God, yeah.
That was your kid.
Oh, that's right. Sorry, that was Cayenne. That was my 8-year-old. Sorry.
Poor kid. Jody was going around apologizing to all the coaches and swimmers. Like, that's us.
See, I tried to forget it, so I was going to blame it on you guys. So, Lee, you want to talk about our sweet relay? Since I found that photo.
Yeah, do you have it? I was trying to find it.
I don't know where it is now.
Yeah, I couldn't find it either.
Who was on that relay again?
It was
Hollowell.
Yep, right? Ethan Hollowell, Aaron Cardwell, Duncan Howard, and me.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, the squad back then.
Yeah, that's Duncan back when Howard. Mr. Hollowell always wanted to come to our coaches meetings.
Yeah. Yeah, so it was fun. It was just a lot of fun. And, I remember kind of like you said, Jody, like it was just fun and no pressure. And, I was 10 or 11. I didn't know I was first. I didn't know I was out there like competing to win. I just did it and tried my hardest. And, that has to come from having a good role model, a good coach around like you, having a kid that is just totally self-motivated. And that was fun. You know, I got the 50 and the 100 back one year, and then came back the next year and defended the 100 back. And like, that was cool. That was the first time, you know, a whole year had gone by and my 11-year-old brain like suddenly grasped like, oh, I can do this. You know, I put a whole year's worth of work in and it's paid off. And that's a cool lesson to learn. And then, you know, when you're not swimming, you're over there in the back corner playing 13 with kids for, you know, 6 hours, however long the session is. And you just get up, leave the game, warm up, go race, come back. Everyone's still waiting for you. And it's fun, you know, it was just like we were out there having fun and then we raced. And that was just good times, you know, relatively pressure free, which was awesome. And then as a coach, you know, that age group regional meet, there's always someone that comes in and has like one or two crazy breakout swims that no one's expecting. Maybe it's an event that, you know, you just use for filler that they haven't raced in a while. And then, you know, all of a sudden it's their favorite event. And, you know, at the beginning of the season, you're trying to get them to race it and they don't do it. And then they show up at regionals and do it. And they're like, oh yeah, okay, cool. I can do this. I'm bought in. And, you know, you talk about that light bulb moment or that aha moment as a coach, and that meet is just full of them. Yeah. And yeah, those are always one of my favorite parts, those middle events that just go really well.
Totally.
Yeah, I mean, it's cool to hear you all reminisce on, you know, past age group regionals. Obviously, we didn't get one this year. So I think, you know, reliving in the past and bringing up those great memories is huge for us right now. Dwight, I know you and I have shared plenty of good age group regional meets. But, you know, I think the funny thing is Jody has always been to the right of us, right? I mean, Jody, thank you for saving our spots at every meet. But, you know, Jody is always right next to us. So he essentially indirectly shared all those good times with us as well. Dwight, what was your favorite memory?
Oh, you know, when we
Memories.
was talking about all that, I started thinking like, and I can only just think of the last, you know, it's like all the years just start to blend together, and it's hard to, you know, it's hard to pick out any one race or one meet. It would have been nice to have this, you know, we haven't won an age group regional meet in a long time. I was really looking forward to the opportunity to try to win one this year because we won the last two PNS championship meets. So I was, but you know, I just have just specific races more than meets. I mean, I remember a couple years ago, the 11-12 girls won the 200 free relay, and I really had a goal of them winning at least one relay. And we were kind of overmatched a little bit by King's relays, but I really felt we had a shot. And and when we won the 200 free relay, it was very satisfying to me. You know, the years with the Lazarovs, you know, going with them, you know, I think I had a run. I've had a run for several years where I've had a kid at least top 3 in the 500 going there, and that's always
Thursday night.
kind of a goal. Yeah, it's always like a source of pride for me is having a kid win or score very high. But you know, there's not really one meet that or just one. I'd have to stop and think about it. You know, it's like the PNS championship meets and the regional meets kind of blend together sometimes. Yeah. But growing up, the age group regional meets, when I first started, Jody, correct me if I'm wrong, but do you remember them being for short course at Highline Community College?
I can remember fall starting at Highline Community College.
I was, you know, I wasn't like Jody. I was I was above average. I mean, I qualified for age group regionals, but I made finals at age group regionals once. And it was at Highline Community College when I was at 10 and under.
Nice.
That was, and back then they had finals for 10 and
That's
under.
Right.
And I never did again. So as an athlete, that's my one vivid memories. I was on some good relays from that point on, mostly because I had very fast teammates. But as far as individual accomplishments at age group regionals, 10 and under, 50 backstroke, man.
There you go. There you go. Yeah, I can remember Highline. One year they had a problem with the chlorine, so everybody's like eyes were burning out. I remember a friend of mine, he swam for Old Best, and pushed off in the 100 breaths. His goggles came off. He ended up in the wrong lane, then tried to go back into the lane and got disqualified.
Oh my
I remember
God.
back then I fell in the 100 fly and got disqualified.
Mm.
You know, just things like that. To swimming at Lake Oswego pool for regionals, and you had to sit in the gym and hopefully hear the announcement to run over and go swim your race. The only reason I remember that one is I had a really bad earache and wouldn't tell my parents. And then we were in group health on Broadway at like 2 a.m. after getting home to check my ear. Back to now that Dwight kind of said individual swims, some of my favorite individual swims, I mean, you guys know Hunter Barrett. I think that 200 IM he had that one year was as crazy as like, I think he swam 2 years as a 12-year-old.
He
It was
did.
his birthday. So we kind of scored on that. So he dominated. Going way back, there was Enola Scott Brown and James Scott Brown. They may have some records left or have been broken. And I can remember Enola winning the 200 fly by like a 25. It's like a 12-year-old. She just would go. She's at that time, she was swimming for Steve Johnson, like Dwight mentioned. In that 11-12 group, there was Curdy Strand. That's when Angela Bellany came in, and their relays on Gwen Dillow, their relays just dominated. I mean,
Yeah, set the national age group record.
yeah, that's right. Yeah,
Wow.
so they were just
Angela Bellany started with me on Wave 2 years before and then switched.
okay. Well, at least
So you're welcome.
yes. Well, she did. She had some of the most beautiful strokes. So yes, you did a great job. So yeah, those. Oh, yeah, we were lucky with those girls. And then to Hunter's group with Anthony and those guys, to Lee's kids. His young group was, I mean, they were very young, that you don't see as many of those tenors coming in and doing all that stuff. So it was pretty cool even back then. So, and then to go into this one on a jump to sectionals, I can remember the year, again, I had a small group and had a swimmer that didn't want to train that much. And finally got him, I'm like, dude, you have to swim the 200 free. No, I'm not swimming the 200 free. Do it. So they had a B session. He ends up breaking 140 and gets into the A final. Still ended up 8th, but still did it. Then he ended up winning. The weird thing is he tied, but won the 50 free and the 100 free, and both times with the kid from Team Eugene. It was just insane. So crazy stuff like that. And again, that was back when Clausen, I got to sit with Clausen. We'd go, okay, if we split this, we can get first, second, and third in like relays to going all the way to nationals. I remember going to nationals in Indianapolis, and we had I think we brought an F boys 800 free relay one year. So it was just sick, the number of guys we had under 140. So it was pretty, and 2 of us, myself and a swimmer, Peter Wickman, who ended up swimming at Washington, we both got really sick and were out of the meet for a couple of days and finally got to go. And actually Hunter's mom took over and kind of helped out and helped Klaus out and managed the kids. So some of those crazy things, pretty cool too. Yeah. Other stories going to regionals. I can remember being with Bob and Klaus and Steve, and they'd want to get up at like 6 a.m. and go swim. And then we'd be there till, we wouldn't leave the deck till 9 o'clock at night. So,
Long meets.
Yeah, long meets. And to all of us, I hope you guys don't do that anymore, but we all had to share one room in the, like the Gold Coast Motel in Wenatchee. So, but you couldn't even open the door to go into the restroom. But I'm like, that's probably the one time, Lee, when I did question whether or not I want to be a coach. I'm like, this is the Bellevue Club and this is the hotel we're staying in. But
Andrew has thankfully changed that tradition for us.
Klaus
Right.
actually still stays at that motel when
Yeah.
we make it way to
At the Avenue.
hey, he knows it. So anyway, so what else you guys want?
Yeah, no, that's actually really funny. With us sharing careers as coaches and whatnot, you obviously experienced a lot as a swimmer, and you experienced a lot as a coach, kind of learning from Bob, learning from Klaus. What's one of the best lessons you learned as a swimmer from those two, and as a coach from those two?
Well, from Klaus, it's the compassion and listening to the athletes. From Bob, even though he was so challenging, he knew how to get the best out of you. It may not be the way we do it now, but he could find a way. I can remember getting not on your cell phone, but getting a message on my phone like, "Where were you this morning, Braden?" But it was never mean. He'd like end up reading like some quote, and he's like, "All right, now I'm gonna end up at practice at like 3:30, ready to go. Walk into the office with your head down," and then he'd build you up. Klaus would probably tag team and say something really sweet. So those are some of the best. I'll give you one of the worst practice, just to give you a worst practice that I will never give again. Bob told us, he's like, hey, you can come to the Bellevue Club at 6 and you'll be done early. So Saturday morning, we're like, it's going to be 80. We can go to the Gooding family's house and go on their boat. We got this. We're dialed in. We're on the boat by like 9 a.m. So I'll get there. He pushed the bulkhead by himself to long course. And then we all do, classic Bob work, warm up like 5 200s. And then we're all in there and we all like maybe 1 to 2 to a lane. And he goes, okay, Gar, you're doing 1 3,000 time. Audrey Langan, you're doing 2 3,000. The Phillips twins, you're doing 3 3,000s. And then he gets to me and goes, Braden, you're doing 4 3,000s for time. And I'm like, wait, I came early and I'm getting out late now. And in between each 3,000, you'd either have like 5 200 IMs or 5 200s breaststroke, because I was at that time a weak stroke. So I think it ended up like 15,500. And by the end, it was just me and I think Maureen Phillips, we were the last two. And of course, she was 14 and ran me over at the end because I couldn't move. So I learned you push kids quite like that, but you can find ways to get out of it. And now I've got a great story from 20 plus years. Well, now 30 years ago. It would have been 1990. So,
wow, yikes!
Yeah, we don't do. No one does that anymore, do they?
Yeah, and then you add long course. And I can remember one friend actually, he got out, and I remember him throwing like a kickboard at Bob. I'm like, oh no.
He threw a kickboard at Bob?
Yeah, that was not good. So,
can you imagine any of our swimmers throwing a kickboard at us right now?
Yeah, no.
Just different times.
Well, and actually one more different time. Now you can say that before Olympic trials in 1988, Bob thought I was fat. And I think I weighed 185. So of course, Bob's, Dwight can remember those days. We would have to, before Saturday practice, weigh ourselves on deck, girls and guys. And I can remember weighing in before a practice, and I weighed 185. Swam 3 hours, and I snuck into the men's locker room to weigh myself in. I was down to 175. I ended up swimming trials at 172. And then was told I had chicken legs. And so I was like, from then on, I will never, discuss weight and do that. So that was a little rough one, but you can imagine the girls then, even then, were not happy with having to weigh in front of everybody. And it was charted, and it'd be on the wall. So
holy crap!
Yeah. So one thing I wouldn't do ever. But, and now obviously we know a lot more. We just bring in a nutritionist and let them do that. So.
Yeah. You definitely live and learn. Kind of tying back to everything that you've learned, with you being the head coach at Portland now at PAC, what are some things that you've taken from all your experiences and developing the team culture that you have now? Because again, like being on deck with you and your team, you can totally tell with the conversation that you have with your swimmers, they trust you. There's a lot of buy-in and you're having fun with them. So what kind of team culture are you fostering for PAC?
It's quite a challenge when I first came in, because a lot of kids were, the way the program was designed, some kids would come for part of a practice, some would come out and no, we're all part of this together. And the buy-in, I guess now, we've tried to change it to, we're going to cater to more than athletes, which probably is going to help more after this COVID thing. I think what we've done is we've brought in a lot of outside resources to sell, do the mindset, to do the nutrition, to do physical therapy, a lot of things like you guys do. But I think the kids love just going, okay, he's going to bring in these different resources to talk to you. I've even had a national teamer who happened to be in town. I'm like, hey, can you at least come by and say hi? And they're just like, whoa, these people. So, and I think they love that. And they love being to, the swim meets up in Seattle, and then they see, oh, you were at, they have no idea who you guys are, but they're like, oh, that's cool. I actually don't know why all my kids want to hang out with me all the time, but hey, it's all good. I'm glad as the, 8+-year-old that these kids want to be there. I think what it is just, I try to challenge them, still put a little laugh and a smile, and they know. We tell them, trust the process. Now it's stay healthy or stay strong, and they love it. We had 18 on a call the other day, and I was happy with that. I mean, the 4 that weren't, they're all graduating, and even though Oregon's pass fail, we got a few that are IB AP, so they actually have to take their classes. So
yeah,
it's just trying to keep it as positive. And just, I think the biggest thing I've learned over the last 5 years as a head coach is just, when you're on deck, it's a show, and you got to try to put it best foot forward every day that you're there. So, you can't just be sitting there looking at your phone the whole time or whatever. So stay moving. So.
Yeah, and it does get pretty tiring. We get home at night and just like when we're on the couch, like boom, finally able to kind of relax as best as possible. But everything you just said, obviously, like I said, it shows when on deck with all your kids. During this crazy time, obviously, a lot of things are uncertain. What do you have to say? What kind of advice, what words of encouragement do you have, Jody, for everyone listening in? Because I know on Instagram you're always giving shout outs to your team, and I love it. But also I think for our team it's super beneficial to hear not only our coaching staff, but those out there who are in their corner.
I think you got to take advantage of this time. Yes, it's challenging. It's frustrating. You go through every emotion. My staff have gone through different things on this. I have two that are also battling various things on top of it. It's just trying to stay as positive as you can, take advantage of it, try to soak in everything, but also find it within reason. You don't have to sit on the computer for 14 hours to try to learn everything. Take a few hours and then go take a few hours for yourself. For me, we were supposed to be empty nesters here in 6 months, but we're really enjoying seeing our two kids, interacting together and actually, unlike a swim coach, having dinner together and just talking and not talking about, my wife's in it, not that she would talk about it, but, we don't have to talk about customers, not trying to relive, sneak in a couple swim things, because I do like to get the pat on the back, because as you know, we don't get the pat on the back. I can say as a staff, when I rehire my staff, it was great. We had a call yesterday, and just to see their faces and them light up, and it felt like they wanted to more than they ever had. So just being open like that, and just, I do try to do as I call it, my cheesy Instagram things, because I want the kids to know, hey, I'm there. I care about you. We love you. We can't wait. We don't know what it's going to look like, but we want you back. So, and I just had an email come in on talking about virtual swimming. So we'll start talking about that later tonight on a board meeting. So I think I'm fortunate. One last thing to tie in. I'm very fortunate that ever since I came to this team, the board has supported me fully from day one. There's never been any wavering on that, and I can't thank them more than enough. They'll do anything for myself and for the staff. That was number one when this went down. They're like, we're going to do everything to keep you involved. So I'm very fortunate, and then maybe that's what helps the kids see that too.
Yeah, we're right there with you. I can definitely, all three of us can definitely relate on the board front. Our boosters have been super supportive of us and the team as soon as this went down. So it's great to hear that other teams are in the same position. Yeah. But Jody, really appreciate you taking the time to speak with us, man.
Well, good to see you guys. Hopefully we get to rendezvous with you all this summer.
Definitely
where that happens. So,
all right,
and
stay
then
healthy, Jody.
Thank you, and I want you to win regionals when we get to have it again. So, I'll help you.
All right.
All right, guys.
Take care.
Take care.
Bye.
Have a good day.
Thank you. Thanks.